She walked into a courtroom that judged her guilty before she spoke. One call, 3 words, and everything flipped. Who is Amara Wells, and how does a 65-year-old woman bring a biased judge to her knees? Follow the story. You won't believe what happens. Amara stepped through the door of the Oakland County Courthouse, her boots clicking softly on the worn wood floor. Her gray jacket was crisp, her jeans faded but clean, her scarf a soft red that caught the light. She carried a knit cap in one hand, not for style but for memory, like it held stories no one else could read. The whispers started instantly, sharp, low, predictable. Another drifter. Waste of time. She didn't flinch. She'd heard worse, felt worse, in places that should have known better. Her name was Amara Wells, charged with trespassing on a crumbling row house in West Side Heights. To the court, it was just a violation, another box to check. To Amara, it was the porch where she'd raised her son, where she'd laughed with her partner until dawn, where she'd mourned when cancer took her too soon. The deed wasn't hers anymore. Banks and city laws saw to that. But the ground knew her footsteps, so did she. She sat at the defense table alone, no lawyer, no entourage. Not because she was abandoned, but because she chose to face this solo. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, scanned the room, not begging, not breaking, just waiting to see if anyone here had the guts to really see her. Judge Vivian Holt swept in, her black robe slicing the air. At 50, she'd seen it all, or so she thought. Her voice dripped with disdain as she flipped open the file, barely glancing at Amara. Amara Wells, 65, trespassing on city property. She smirked, her tone icy, laced with something uglier than boredom. Prejudice, the kind that doesn't need a megaphone to cut deep. No address, no job, no respect for the law. Shocker. The room stayed quiet, but it wasn't calm. It was the kind of silence that lets cruelty slide. Amara didn't blink. She'd faced judges like Holt before, people who saw her skin, her age, her defiance, and decided she was less before she even spoke. But she wasn't here to plead. She was here to test the system's spine. In the corner, Lena Carter, the court clerk, paused mid-type. Something about Amara's stillness tugged at her. A memory, faint but insistent. Years ago, in a crowded city hall, a woman with that same steady gaze had presented plans for a community clinic, her voice quiet but fierce as she fought for wider doors, better light, spaces that healed. Lena shook her head. No way it's her. But the thought wouldn't leave. Holt leaned forward, her smirk sharpening. You people always have a story, don't you? Squatting on property you don't own, thinking you're owed something. The words landed like a slap, her bias bare for anyone who cared to notice. This isn't your home anymore, Miss Wells. It's the city's. You don't get to claim it just because you're nostalgic. Mara's hands stayed folded, her face unreadable. She didn't shrink, didn't snap back. She just watched Holt, her eyes like mirrors reflecting the judge's venom back at her. The gallery shifted uncomfortably. Some agreed with Holt's tone, others felt the sting of it, but no one spoke up. Not yet. Holt tapped her gavel lightly, already bored. 2 minutes, Ms. Wells. Say something worth hearing, or we're done. Amara lifted her chin, her voice low but clear, cutting through the room like a blade through fog. I'll speak when you're ready to listen, Holt scoffed, her laugh sharp and hollow. Cute, but this court doesn't run on riddles. She reached for her gavel, ready to slam it down, to bury Amara's case under the weight of her own assumptions. But something in Amara's stillness stopped her. A flicker of doubt, maybe, or the sense that she'd just stepped into something bigger than her bench. The silence stretched, heavy, electric. Amara didn't rush it. She'd lived too long, lost too much to care about Holt's impatience. Finally, she spoke again, her words deliberate, like laying bricks. That house? I built it, not just the walls, the life inside. The city you're so proud of? I helped shape it. Holt's eyebrow arched, his sneer dripping with disbelief. You? Built it? That's a new one. In the second row, Nate Rivera, a young reporter for the Bay Chronicle, froze, his phone halfway to a snarky tweet. Old lady says she built Oakland? Sure, Jan, but the way Amara said it, calm, certain, not asking for applause, made his finger hover. It wasn't a claim, it was a fact, and somehow he felt it in his gut. Amara leaned forward slightly, her voice steady as steel. I drew plans for clinics that saved lives, shelters that gave hope, homes that held families together. I built for people, not profit. Her eyes locked on Holt's, unyielding. Now I'm standing in a room that tears down what I made. The courtroom hung in a brittle hush, Judge Vivian Holt's sneer still echoing. Amara Wells sat like a rock in a storm, her words, I built for people, not profit, lingering like a challenge no one expected. If you're hooked on this story of quiet strength shaking up a system, hit that like button, share it with someone who gets it, and subscribe for more. Let's dive back into the moment the room started to crack. Holt leaned back, her laugh sharp, slicing through Amara's truth. Built the city? You? Her voice was a weapon, laced with mockery and something uglier, disdain for the black woman daring to claim a legacy in her courtroom. This isn't a history lesson, Ms. Wells. It's a trespassing case. Your memories don't pay the city's bills. The gallery stayed silent, complicit in its stillness. Some nodded, eating up Holt's venom. Others shifted, uneasy but too scared to speak. Mara didn't budge. Her hands stayed folded, her gaze locked on Holt. Not defiant, not pleading, just steady, like she was measuring the judge's soul and finding it wanting. Lena Carter, the clerk, couldn't look away. Amara's words had sparked something, a memory of a woman in a city planning meeting, her pencil sketching hope into blueprints for a clinic that saved lives. Lena's fingers hovered over her laptop, her pulse quickening. Is it her? The thought felt like a betrayal to the docket blinking on her screen. Trespassing. Amara Wells. But Amara's presence screamed something else. Someone who'd earned her place, not stolen it. Holt tapped her file, impatient. You've got 1 minute to say something that matters, Miss Wells, or we're moving on. Her tone was a door slamming shut, her bias bare in the way she spat Amara's name as if it dirtied her mouth. Amara didn't rush. She tilted her head slightly, her voice low, cutting through the room like a river through stone. I'll talk when you're ready to hear me. The words landed soft but heavy, like a truth too big for the room. Holt's eyes narrowed, her smirk twisting into something colder. Don't play games with me, she snapped, her voice rising, betraying a crack in her control. You're not special. You're just another name on a long list of people who think they can dodge the law. Amara blinked slowly, unbothered, like she'd heard this script before. In boardrooms, on streets, in the eyes of people who saw her skin before her story. That house wasn't just mine, she said, her voice steady, each word a brick in a wall she'd built long ago. It was part of a city I helped raise. I drew the plans for places that held people together. Clinics, shelters, homes. You're sitting in a world I helped make. Holt's laugh was a bark, sharp and dismissive. You? A builder? She leaned forward, her eyes glinting with cruelty. What's next? You designed the Bay Bridge? Save the fairy tales for someone who cares. Her words were a dog whistle, her prejudice screaming in the subtext. She didn't just doubt Amara, she refused to believe a woman like her could matter. Nate Rivera, the reporter in the second row, gripped his phone tighter. He'd been ready to fire off a tweet. Grandma claims she built Oakland, Judge isn't buying it. But Amara's voice stopped him cold. It wasn't loud, wasn't desperate. It was true, and it hit him like a punch he didn't see coming. He lowered his phone, his thumb frozen, his gut telling him this wasn't a story to mock. It was one to witness. Amara leaned forward now, just an inch, her posture perfect, her eyes never leaving Holt's. I held a pencil when I was too young to read. I designed rooms where babies breathed their first breath, where the dying found peace, where the broken got a second chance. Her voice didn't waver, but it sharpened, each word a nail in the coffin of Holt's assumptions. I built for healing. Now I'm standing in a place that destroys. The room didn't erupt. No gasps, no cheers, but it shifted. A woman in the back straightened. A man coughed, uncomfortable. Lena's eyes widened, her memory snapping into focus. Amara, younger, standing tall in a meeting, her blueprints saving a clinic from budget cuts with one perfect line. Lena's chest tightened. It is her. Holt's face hardened, her fingers tightening on the file. So you're saying the law doesn't apply to you because you were somebody once? Her voice was a blade, her prejudice dripping like poison. That's not how this works, Ms. Wells. Not in my courtroom. Amara didn't flinch. Her eyes held Holt's, calm but unyielding, like she'd spent decades staring down people who refused to see her. I'm not saying I'm above the law, she said, her voice clear, final. I'm saying the law's forgotten who built the ground it stands on. Nate's pen scratched furiously now, his tweet forgotten. He wasn't just covering a case anymore. He was watching a reckoning unfold. Lena's fingers trembled, her screen still open to the charge that now felt like a lie. And Holt? Her smirk was gone, replaced by something tighter, something that knew it had underestimated the woman in front of her. Hinting with unease. The courtroom crackled with tension. Amara Wells's words, "The law's forgotten who built the ground it stands on," hanging like a storm cloud ready to burst. Judge Vivian Holt's face was a mask of control, but her eyes betrayed her, flickering with unease. If this story of quiet power taking down a biased system is hitting you, smash that like button, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more. Let's jump back into the moment everything started to shift. Holt gripped her gavel, her knuckles whitening. "Poetic, Ms. Wells," she said, her voice tight, dripping with sarcasm. "But poems don't erase crimes." Her sneer was back, sharper now, fueled by the kind of prejudice that didn't just dismiss Amara, it erased her. "You've been warned before about that property. You ignored it. That's not a story, it's a pattern." Her eyes raked over Amara, seeing only what she wanted. A black woman, too old, too stubborn, too insignificant to matter. The room stayed quiet, but it wasn't neutral. It was the kind of silence that lets injustice breathe. A few in the gallery nodded, buying Holt's narrative. Others looked away, uncomfortable but silent. Mara sat still, her hands folded, her face unreadable. She wasn't here to beg, she was here to wait, to see if truth could still break through. Lena Carter, the clerk, felt her stomach twist. Amara's words had cracked open a memory. A woman in a crowded city hall, her blueprint saving a clinic with one stroke of genius. Lena's eyes flicked to the docket on her screen. Trespassing. Amara Wells. The charge felt wrong now, like a lie she typed herself. Her fingers hovered, frozen as she watched Amara, the woman who'd built hope, reduced to a case number by Holt's venom. Holt leaned forward, her voice cutting. "You don't get special treatment because you think you're owed, Ms. Wells. This is my courtroom, and the law doesn't bend for sob stories." The "you" was a dog whistle, her bias screaming in the way she spat it, as if Amara's very existence offended her. Amara didn't flinch. Her eyes held Holt's, calm, unshaken, like she'd faced worse than a gavel and lived to tell it. The judge raised her gavel, ready to end it. 30 days in county jail, she declared, the words slamming down like a door. The gavel hit the bench, sharp, final. No one gasped, but the air shifted, heavy with something unspoken. Nate Rivera, the reporter, felt his pen stop mid-scribble. He'd been ready to tweet something snarky. Judge shuts down trespasser's tale. But Amara's stillness stopped him. She didn't react, didn't slump. She just sat, like the verdict was a breeze she'd already weathered. Nate's gut twisted. This wasn't just a case, it was something bigger. Lena's eyes darted from Holt to Amara, her heart racing. The charge on her screen burned now, a mistake she couldn't untype. She saw it in Amara's posture, not defeat, but certainty, like she knew something the room didn't. And then Amara moved. She glanced at her wrist, at an old watch with a cracked leather strap, its faint tick like a pulse. She wasn't checking time, she was checking timing. Her voice came, low, respectful but firm. "May I make one call?" Holt blinked, caught off guard. her smirk faltering. A call? To who? Her tone was mocking, but there was a crack in it, like she sensed the ground shifting. Amara didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her question wasn't a request, it was a step in a plan already in motion. Holt's eyes narrowed, her prejudice flaring. She didn't like being challenged, especially not by someone she'd already dismissed. "Fine," she snapped, waving a hand. "Bailiff, give her a phone. 1 minute, don't waste my time." The bailiff, Officer Marcus Tate, hesitated, his eyes flicking to Amara with something like respect. He handed her a phone, stepping back quickly, like he didn't want to be caught in whatever was coming. Amara took it with a nod, her fingers steady. She didn't scroll, didn't hesitate. She dialed a number from memory, pressed the phone to her ear, and spoke 3 words. "It's time, now." That was it. No name, no explanation. She ended the call, slid the phone back across the table with the care of someone laying down a winning card. The room went still, the air buzzing with something new. Not certainty, but anticipation, like the moment before lightning strikes. Holt leaned back, her laugh forced. "What's this? Your fan club coming to protest? Spare us the drama." But her joke fell flat, her voice thinner now, like she felt the shift and hated it. Her bias had blinded her, but something in Amara's calm was starting to burn through. Nate lowered his pen, his tweet forgotten. His instincts screamed. This wasn't a story to spin, it was a moment to witness. Lena's breath caught, her memory of Amara's blueprints now vivid, undeniable. She wasn't just a defendant, she was a force, and that call had just lit a fuse. The courtroom pulsed with uneasy silence. Amara Wells' 3 words, "It's time now," hanging like a lit fuse. Judge Vivian Holt's mocking laugh still echoed, but her confidence was fraying, her prejudice blindsiding her to the storm brewing. If you're gripped by this tale of truth, tearing down a biased system, hit that like button, share it with someone who feels it, and subscribe for more stories that spark change. Let's dive into the moment the room turned upside down. Holt leaned back, her smirk forced. "What's next, Miss Wells? A parade?" Her voice dripped with scorn, her bias glaring in the way she dismissed Amara, a black woman who dared to defy her gavel. But the air had shifted, heavy, with something Holt couldn't name. Amara sat calm, her hands folded, her eyes steady, like she'd already won a battle no one else could see. Lena Carter, the clerk, couldn't shake the memory now. Amara, decades younger, her blueprints breathing life into a Westside Heights clinic. Lena's screen still screamed trespassing, but her heart screamed wrong. She watched Amara, her pulse hammering, sensing something big was coming. Nate Rivera, the reporter, gripped his notebook, his snarky tweet long forgotten. His instincts buzzed. This wasn't a case anymore, it was a reckoning. Then it came, a sound, sharp and deliberate, click, click, click. Heels on marble, not rushed, not hesitant, but unstoppable like fate walking in. The hallway outside had been dead quiet, but now those steps filled every corner, each one a declaration. Heads turned to the double doors, drawn by a force they couldn't explain. The doors flew open. Not loud, not dramatic, just final. Zara Wells stepped in, a vision of power in a sleek navy suit, her presence slicing through the room like a blade. At 38, she moved with the kind of confidence that didn't ask permission. Her eyes, sharp like her mother's, scanned the room, locking on Holt with a gaze that could crack stone. She didn't pause, didn't waver, striding down the aisle past stunned faces and half-formed whispers. No one stopped her. Not the bailiff, not Lena, not even Holt, whose mouth opened and then snapped shut. Amara didn't turn. She didn't need to. She'd been waiting for this. Zara reached her mother, resting one hand on her shoulder, not for comfort, but for clarity, a silent vow. They're about to know you. Zara's other hand was empty, no briefcase, no props. She didn't need them. She was here to end the fight, not start one. Her eyes never left Holt, pinning the judge like she was sizing up a house of cards about to fall. Holt shifted, her hands fumbling over the case file, her authority crumbling under that unflinching stare. "Ma'am," she stammered, her voice thinner now, "this case is closed. If you don't have business here—" Zara didn't blink. She didn't speak. Her silence was louder than any gavel, a wall Holt couldn't climb. The judge's prejudice had painted Amara as nothing, but Zara's presence screamed the truth. Amara was everything. The room wasn't Holt's anymore, it belonged to the woman who'd just walked in. Without a word, Zara reached into her jacket and pulled out a slim black folder, its edges worn but deliberate, like it carried history. She set it on the defense table with a soft thud, the sound heavier than it should have been. She opened it with precision, like revealing a verdict, and slid it toward Holt, one smooth motion, like checkmate. Holt stared at it, her sneer gone, her hands hesitating. She grabbed the folder, flipping it open with a jerk as if force could reclaim her control. The first page stopped her cold. Property records. Signed, notarized, dated. A clause in bold. Amara Wells retains access to 1427 Westside Heights under redevelopment terms, Section 8B, until transition completes. Holt's jaw tightened. She flipped to the next page. A city certificate. 1995, naming Amara Wells lead architect for Westside Heights Clinic, Bayview Shelter, and Oakland Veterans Hub. Her signature was unmistakable, steady as her gaze. The third page hit harder, a 2001 City Council letter, praising Amara's transformative impact and legacy of renewal, signed with a mayor's flourish and a gold seal. Holt's hands shook, just enough to betray her. Her face, once flushed with smug certainty, drained to ash. She wasn't looking at paper, she was looking at a mirror. And it showed her every mistake. Her prejudice had blinded her, but the truth was undeniable now. Staring back, in black and white, Zara still hadn't spoken, she didn't need to. The folder spoke, the room spoke, Amara spoke through her silence. Lena covered her mouth, her eyes wet. Trespassing on her screen now, a cruel irony. Nate's pen scratched furiously, his heart pounding. He wasn't writing a headline, he was capturing history. The bailiff, Marcus Tate, shifted, his eyes on Amara, respect replacing protocol. Holt cleared her throat, her voice unsteady. "Please indicate, Ms. Wells." Zara raised a hand, not cutting her off, just pausing the moment. Her voice, when it came, was calm, lethal. "My mother didn't ask for pity, she asked to sit on the steps of the home she built." The courtroom was a pressure cooker, Zara Wells's words. "My mother asked to sit on the steps of the home she built," cutting through Judge Vivian Holt's crumbling facade. The black folder on the table, its pages exposing Amara Wells's legacy, had silenced Holt's prejudice. But not for long. If this story of truth-crushing a biased system is firing you up, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories that shake the soul. Let's dive into the moment justice finally broke through. Holt clutched the folder, her hands unsteady. Her face pale as the truth stared her down. The property records, the architect's certificate, the city's own praise, all proof that Amara wasn't a trespasser but a pillar of Oakland. Holt's sneer was gone, replaced by a tight-lipped panic. She'd built her verdict on prejudice, dismissing Amara as a nobody, a black woman who didn't belong. Now that lie was unraveling, and the room felt it. Zara stood tall beside her mother, her navy suit sharp, her gaze locked on Holt like a laser. She hadn't raised her voice, hadn't needed to. Her presence was a verdict in itself, and Holt was losing. Amara sat still, her hands folded, her eyes calm but piercing, like she'd always known this moment would come. The gallery was frozen, every breath held, every eye on the woman who'd turned a trespassing charge into a reckoning. Lena Carter, the clerk, pressed a hand to her chest, her eyes wet. The memory of Amara's blueprints, those wide clinic doors, that stubborn fight for better, was now undeniable. The trespassing charge on her screen felt like a personal betrayal. She glanced at Nate Rivera, the reporter, whose pen flew across his notebook, no longer chasing clicks but capturing a moment that deserved to be eternal. Holt cleared her throat, her voice shaky, grasping for control. "These documents suggest Ms. Wells has some history with the property." Her words stumbled, her bias still clinging like a shadow, refusing to fully admit she'd been wrong. She looked at Zara, then Amara, her eyes darting, searching for an out. Zara raised a hand, not sharp, just steady, stopping Holt's weak dodge. Her voice came, clear and unyielding. each word a hammer on Holt's crumbling throne. My mother didn't come here for pity. The room leaned in, hanging on her paws. She didn't come for favors. Eyes dropped, some ashamed, some stunned. She came to sit on the porch of the home she built, the home you called a crime scene. The words hit like a shockwave, heavy, undeniable. A woman in the gallery stifled a sob, her hand over her mouth. Nate's pen stopped, his breath caught. He wasn't just writing now. He was feeling. Lena's fingers trembled, her guilt sharp. She hadn't spoken up, hadn't questioned the charge, and now Zara's truth was rewriting the room. Zara stepped closer to the bench, just one step, her presence filling the space Holt had claimed. You didn't see a builder, a veteran, a woman who shaped this city. Her voice stayed even, but it burned. You saw what you wanted, a trespasser, a problem, someone to throw away. She gestured to Amara, still seated, still calm. My mother came here believing the law could still honor the people who made it stand. The silence wasn't quiet. It was alive, pulsing with the weight of Zara's words. Holt's mouth opened, then closed, her prejudice exposed, her authority shattered. She stared at the folder, its pages a mirror she couldn't escape. For the first time, she saw Amara, not a case, not a stereotype, but a woman who'd built the city she'd sworn to serve. Holt's voice, when it came, was small, cracked. Motion. The words fell soft but seismic. Ms. Wells is released. Immediately. No cheers, no gasps. Just a release, like the room could finally breathe. Marcus Tate, the bailiff, moved first, his steps deliberate. He reached Amara, his hands gentle as he unlocked the cuffs with a quiet click, the sound louder than Holt's gavel. He stepped back, not just protocol but respect, his eyes meeting Amara's with a nod that said more than words. Amara stood, slow, not fragile, but deliberate, like she was shedding a weight she'd carried too long. She reached for her knit cap, placing it on her head with both hands, not for show, but for dignity, a reclaiming of who she was. Her scarf caught the light, red and defiant, as she turned toward the doors, each step steady, unhurried. The gallery watched, silent, like they were seeing the end of a story they hadn't known they were part of. At the door, Amara paused, one foot in the hallway. Holt's voice, thin but urgent, broke through. Ms. Wells. Amara turned slightly, just enough, her eyes meeting Holt's. The judge swallowed, her hands gripping the bench. Is there anything I can do? A beat passed, heavy with years of being unseen. Amara's voice came, soft but clear, a final truth. Start looking. A pause. Start hearing. The courtroom was still reeling Amara Wells's final words. Start looking. Start hearing. Ringing like a bell no one could unhear, Judge Vivian Holt sat frozen, her prejudice exposed, her gavel useless against the truth Zara Wells had laid bare. If this story of quiet strength, rewriting justice, is lighting you up, smash that like button, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more stories that hit deep. Let's dive into the moment Amara walked out, leaving a room forever changed. Amara's boots clicked softly as she crossed the threshold, her red scarf trailing like a flag of defiance. She paused, one foot still in the courtroom, not to gloat, not to accuse, but to mark the moment. Her eyes swept the room, Judge Holt, Lena Carter, Nate Rivera, the gallery, like she was giving them one last chance to see her, really see her. The silence wasn't empty, it was heavy, alive with the weight of a truth too big to ignore. Her voice came, low but steady, each word carved from a lifetime of being unseen. They tried to erase my place. She didn't point, didn't shout, my name. Her gaze held Holt's, then Lena's, then Nate's, my work. A pause, her eyes burning with memory, not muscle. But I built something stronger than this room. Holt's hands gripped the bench, her face ashen. Her prejudice had painted Amara as a trespasser, a nobody, a black woman who didn't belong. Now, that lie lay shattered, and Holt was staring at its pieces. She didn't speak, couldn't, her authority stripped by the woman she'd tried to bury. Lena Carter pressed a hand to her mouth, tears spilling silently. the memory of Amara's blueprints. Those clinic doors, that fight for hope, was a knife now, cutting through her guilt. She'd typed trespassing without question, but Amara wasn't a case. She was a legacy, and Lena had failed to honor it. Her screen blinked, accusing her, but her heart was with the woman walking out. Nate Rivera leaned back, his notebook trembling in his hands. He'd come for a quick story, maybe a viral tweet, but Amara's words hit like a sermon he hadn't known he needed. He whispered, barely audible, "This isn't a trial. It's a correction." His pen moved again, not for clicks but for truth, capturing a moment that felt sacred. Amara turned slightly, her scarf catching the light. She lifted a hand, tapping 2 fingers to her chest right over her heart. "I don't need papers to prove I belong." A breath, a pause. The city remembers. The words didn't just land, they took root, sinking into the room like seeds in soil. Zara stepped beside her mother, her hand brushing Amara's arm, not to guide, not to protect, but to say, "We're done here." Her navy suit was a shield, her silence a promise. Together they walked, not loud, not proud, just right. The doors closed behind them, the sounds soft but final, like a book slamming shut on a story no one could forget. The gallery didn't move, no one clapped, no one whispered. No? They just sat, stunned, like they'd witnessed something bigger than law, bigger than justice. Holt stared at the open folder, its pages a mirror she couldn't unsee. Her prejudice had blinded her, but Amara's truth had forced her to look, really look, and it hurt. Lena wiped her eyes, her guilt sharp but shifting. She wasn't just a clerk anymore, she was a witness, and Amara's legacy demanded she do better. She closed her laptop, the trespassing charge disappearing, a small act of defiance against a system that had failed. Nate lifted his phone, not to tweet but to type something real, something raw. His fingers moved slowly, each word earned. She didn't win. She was eternal. He didn't hit send, not yet. This wasn't for the world to cheapen with likes. It was for him, for the kid who'd once believed in heroes and just found one. Outside, the hallway swallowed Amara and Zara's steps, but their presence lingered, a ripple no one could stop. Back inside, the courtroom felt different, not a place of judgment, but a place of reckoning. Amara hadn't fought for applause. She'd stood for memory, for the quiet lives that built cities and were too often erased. The truth didn't shout that day. It didn't demand. It walked. Calm, steady, free. Amara Wells wasn't just a name on a docket. She was a force, a builder, a woman who'd shaped Oakland's heart. And Zara, her daughter, had made sure the world knew it. The gallery sat in silence, not out of fear but awe, grappling with what they'd seen. A woman misjudged, a system exposed, a legacy reclaimed. Amara Wells' story isn't just a courtroom drama, it's a lesson in seeing the unseen. She showed us that truth doesn't need to shout, it stands firm, even when prejudice tries to bury it. The real takeaway? Look beyond labels, listen to the stories others ignore, and stand up for what's right, no matter how quiet your voice. In your life, challenge assumptions, whether at work, in your community, or in yourself. Honor the builders, the unsung heroes, whose work shapes our world. Amara's legacy lives in every step you take to see and hear others. If this story moved you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that spark change. Thank you for watching, for caring, for being part of this journey to lift up what matters.